Hi, everyone. I'm Scotty Walker, the president of Louisiana Music Educators Association. I sincerely hope that you have gotten as much from these sessions as I have. I think the team who assembled this one-day conference, especially Brett Babineau, who envisioned Ready, Set, Go, absolutely hit it out of the park. Bravo. On behalf of LMEA, it is my distinct privilege to introduce the final session today. For their day jobs, both of these presenters are outstanding educators in their own right. But in their spare time, they are both superheroes fighting for us all in ensuring that music not only remain essential, but is available to all, and that is a monumental task. We are indeed fortunate to have them lead us on the national front. Dr. Mackie Spradley is the current president of the National Association for Music Education, and Scott Sheehan is the president-elect. Thank you both for spending time with us here today. Jackie, Scott?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Louisiana. It is so good to see you all, not really seeing you, but to be in your presence today. You know, I wish this was face-to-face. I would be missing, I would have some great food that I could look forward to after this session. I'm going to have to imagine that it's there. I know I can't cook it myself, but I can't imagine. It is great to be with you for Serious. Has been a wonderful day for you. And I know that you are looking forward to beginning the school year next year, within the next week. And you have learned many things today, not the normal things that you necessarily would expect, but something new, something different to take you in a different direction. And wouldn't you agree that that is very much what we need as music educators? And as teachers, this is something that we really, really need. When I was thinking about what we would talk about, Scott and I have kind of talked and kind of not talked, and so we're going to do some tag teaming today to kind of give you an overview of what we're doing throughout the MEAs that we feel that is going to make a phenomenal difference. And we're going to give you some information about our resources that we have in place that we hope that will help you throughout the year. I want to first say that as I was thinking about today's session, I could only think of something that I learned much earlier. I live close to the coast, like many of you, and my family has experienced multiple storms, and of course, Harvey and everything. But in all of the storms before, I remember that flood line. You walk back in the house after you have gone through a flood, have gone through anything, and there's that watershed moment there, that flood line that you see. And when you think about watershed moments or flood lines, in many instances, they don't move away. They never leave us. They leave an enduring mark that you cannot fade, you cannot change. It's permanent. And so when I think of some of the things that we have experienced over the last year and a half, we can certainly say that these have been and continue to be, in many aspects, watershed moments, marks that have tremendously changed us. No matter how much we say we want to go back to normal, there is no more normal. That's just not going to happen. It's too much that we have thought about. We have experienced these things not only in our physical being, but also in our mental being, in our emotional being. We have changed. We will never be the same. So today's session is about how do we take this new being, our new being, and move it forward. In our minds, when we think about boundaries, we can have physical boundaries, spiritual boundaries, emotional boundaries, all kinds of boundaries. And so if we're going to move beyond the watershed moments, what are some of the things that we need to think about? I can tell you that sometimes boundaries entangle our mind. They mess up our thoughts. You want to think good, but every time you're like, we were talking before we got on, and you said, we hope that it's going to be in person, but in the back of our mind, like, oh, but we might have to use, this, and this to make it happen. And then also at the same time, we want to use new things that we've learned because, like I said, we'll never be the same. We'll never go back totally to the way we were before. So when I think about building programs, when I think about advocacy, what are some of the things that have changed? Well, I'll just speak from the National Leadership Conference. We had this conference about, it's been a month ago. Yeah, just about a month ago with the leadership. It was a virtual conference, and we sat and talked a great deal about our future together, our future collectively and individually. What should be our path after we have gone through all of these experiences? What are some of the things that we have learned that can help us move forward? And who are we? And what direction do we want to go? We know that we are an organization about advocacy. We believe in fighting for students. But let's talk about it too. We also believe in fighting for teachers and fighting for our programs and fighting that our programs remain in our schools and in our school districts, and fighting to ensure that every student has the opportunity to be in a great music program, and that they're not restricted in the way that they make music and experience music. We are advocates of those kinds of things. And when we think about that, how can we as a national association, and I am NAfME, you are NAfME, we are NAfME, we're all a part of this. So how can we move forward? How can we, with all of the things that we have learned, how can we continue to change that dial? I think sometimes when change comes, that's the greatest opportunity for you to do everything you wanted to do. Everything you thought about doing, you can do. For example, my family lost everything in the Harvey flood. I mean, everything. There was nothing left, just a concrete bottom, foundation, and the roof and the bricks on the outside. There were some 2x4s in the center, but most of them were warped and needed to be changed, switched out. So you know what? With the insurance money, I took the opportunity to get everything I wanted to get remodeling that house. So everything that we can do, it's about imagination. How do we imagine ourselves being this next year? We've learned all of these things. We've gotten all of this new experience with technology. Who ever heard of teaching music online? What? Can't do that? You mean I'm going to do a singing lesson, a piano lesson, a guitar lesson? The students are going to sing together online? Those are things that we could not even imagine doing. In fact, you would probably get a fight if you had even mentioned it before. But how quickly we change when things change and make us change. So what I'm saying is, this is a great opportunity because things have changed for us to keep going down the road and making those differences. So as the National Association for Music Education, one of the things that we are really wanting to elevate during this time is our focus on equity, our focus on making sure that every student has an opportunity to get into a music program, to advocate for every student, to make sure if we're really about what we say we're about for every student, for all children, what does that mean? What does that mean? Who are you willing to fight for? Who are you willing to stand up for? You know, back in the days, we used to, I want to say in the old terms, we'd hang out our shingle and say, I am a music teacher. I teach this music. Be sure and come to this class. We'd have that poster, right, in the hallway. So that poster won't do anymore. So how are we going to recruit kids? How are we going to think about technology and those new things that we're going to keep, that kids have experienced everything when we've been apart? And students' priorities have changed. Our priorities have changed. You know what? For many of us, we enjoyed being home. Some of us did not enjoy being home because the kids were yelling and screaming and the dogs and cats were running across the house. But, you know, family is family and it's all great. And think about this as well. Many are focusing on learning loss. So how are we going to approach learning loss? How are we going to approach learning loss, not only in other classes, but also in music? What skills are students maybe a little bit behind on because we weren't able to work with them as much as we wanted to? Think about to what degree we might need to restructure all of our schedules and our programming and our sectionals to make sure that we build skills and fluency in both reading and execution. You know, think about these things. How are we going to advocate for these things? I tell you what, we don't all know the answers. And I believe that our pain points will not be the same pain points that we've experienced in the past. We have developed and elevated new strategies and webinars and resources that we have made available and will continue to make available to you. One of those things that we did over this last year was to create a new professional development committee, a new way of doing our professional development, so that we would have more people at the table, more input, more voices, to ensure that we were thinking about as many diverse needs as possible. The stronger we are by building our diversity, it makes us more able to get to our greatest potential, to get to our greatest capacity. You know, many years ago, I learned, and I must say this is from my early days, I learned that you cannot put new wine in old wineskin. Because if you try to put new wine in old wineskin, when it's time for that new wine to ferment and to grow, the old wineskin will fall apart and you'll lose everything that you placed in because you won't have the capacity to expand. What does that mean for us? That now, as an association, as a group, as teachers, as school districts, as programs, we have to think of ourselves as a new wineskin to ensure that we have the capacity to grow, to continue to learn, to continue to be in places of discomfort. That's the fermenting, in order to reach our greatest potential, to have the capacity to grow and to learn and to expand our doors to receive all of the students, because we are about advocating and being prepared to teach all of the students. I'm going to give it over to Scott. And Scott is going to talk about some of those things that we have tried to set up as a national organization to provide opportunities for you to continue to ferment and grow in your new wineskin. Scott?
Well, and it is almost happy hour time, so I think grabbing that glass of wine would be just fine. But thank you, Mackie, and what inspirational words. We always appreciate hearing you, even though you and I get to talk all the time. It's just I always jot down something new. It's great. So a couple of thoughts about resources, and one of the conversations we've been having at the national level is about advocacy. And when we use this word advocacy, what are we talking about? Because boy, does that mean a lot of things depending on what situation you're in. So is it public policy? Is it legislation? Are we trying to influence government in some way, whether that be federal, state level, the local level? And when we say local, what does that mean? Does that mean my school? Does that mean my community? Does that mean some sort of district level type work? And, you know, we've been talking a lot about change and trying to advocate for systemic change to help to make sure that all children, and we use that word all, and that's another loaded word. It's just like advocacy. You know, these words have so much implication. And so when we talk about trying to provide music for every child and how we advocate, I think it's important for every one of us to really try to break down those pieces and realize a couple of things, just a couple of takeaways on this. And one is advocacy is not crisis management. I think a lot of people think of advocacy and here comes the A team, the advocacy team running in to save the day. And, you know, we're going to get that position back, or we're going to make sure that kindergarten music is still there, or whatever it might be. You know, that help, I need help. And there is some work that I know that LMEA in Louisiana and NAfME can provide in those situations, but really, you know, it's not necessarily the only thing that we can do. And when those crises arise, it's tough. It's really tough to try to change direction on those things. Another place that we think of advocacy is like PR, public relations, and you know, is that advocacy, the flyers, the posters, the something in a concert program, the bulletin board, or those sorts of things. And can that be advocacy? Of course, that can be advocacy. And again, NAfME, Louisiana, you know, we've got resources for some of those things, but I think that it's even more than that. And so this is my own personal definition, but I think of advocacy as the art of building relationships. I think it's really about building relationships for support so that we can advance music education for every child in our schools. And when we think about those relationships, we have to determine the stakeholders and who are all of those different people that are impacted by the advocacy work that we're doing, whether that be at the local level, state, federal level. And so there's a lot there. And I think one resource that just happened 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, was the interview with Dr. Cardona, who is the Secretary of Education. And that, to me, is sort of a public relations great campaign for us to be able to launch that. It was an exclusive interview with NAfME staff, and we were very happy to do that. And I want to share just two quick quotes from that, and I encourage folks to find that. It is on the website. But Dr. Cardona said, "Music does more to develop critical thinking skills and analytical skills and improvisation than any other topic we spend time on in our schools. The Secretary of Education recognizes that music education helps to develop those critical thinking skills, analytical skills, and improvisation, that quick thinking, better than any other area that gets covered in schools." So that's just one quote. The second quote I really like was, we underestimate the power of music and the arts to provide what our country needs right now, which is healing. What powerful words, and so back to my definition of building those relationships, to be able to have a strong ally at the national level, at the federal level, in the Secretary of Education, who can impact policy, who can impact the way policies are carried out and how budgets are carried out and so on. This is a very powerful resource for us. And so I would certainly encourage everyone to check that out. Some other resources that NAfME has is specifically in these areas of advocacy. our state level advocacy. And we just hired, we're very excited about this. We just hired a new person for our state advocacy engagement coordinator or manager. And that is Jasmine A. Sutton. And I hope that all of you, especially leaders from LMEA, get to know Jasmine A. She is brilliant. She is excited. She is enthusiastic, and she knows her stuff. She is so great at really helping to drill down the issues, to help you uncover the issues at your state level, and then be able to leverage what NAfME can do through our advocacy shop and through our public policy shop. And then along with that, a few other things that we have here for advocacy that are on our website. And I didn't want to necessarily share my screen. You can all go to the NAfME.org, and there's a nice column right in the front. It is easy to find. There are a lot of things that aren't easy to find, and we know that, but this is easy to find. We do have a public policy hub. And so, trying to work through all the ESSER language and how to access ESSER funds, that is just huge. And it's going on until 2024. So this isn't something that's a once and done. This is going to be an ongoing for the next few years. So if you haven't done that, check out the resource on the NAfME website on how to access the ESSER funds and how to have those conversations, which is even more important, back to the art of building relationships with your administration. We also have a civic action field guide, which is a great resource to understand, especially state level advocacy and how legislation works and how you might want to influence, say a bill is coming through Louisiana and there's something that could potentially impact music education. This Civic Action Field Guide walks you through the steps of being involved there. And then we also know, as we said, that advocacy happens at the local level. And we have a local advocacy action planning guide that can help for individual directors or music teachers in your school trying to advocate for any particular piece of your program, whether that's just kind of, again, spreading the good news and that PR sorts of things, or really trying to create change. And I would say very strongly, from my own opinion, trying to make sure that there's access and opportunity for children in your schools. I think that is critical. One other resource that's on the NAfME website too is the Arts Are Essential campaign. And this was a joint campaign that we did with several other coalition members from the Standards. If you remember that was created with the coalition and the C-Day folks. And there were several others that helped to create this Arts Are Essential campaign. And that's a local advocacy campaign to help engage, to give you language and give you tools to engage with your school boards, your local district officials, so that they can show that they're going to support music and the arts moving forward in this coming school year. So it's not too late to get on board with that campaign. And I did this personally in my own school district, and my superintendent said, of course we're going to do this. Why wouldn't we do this? And it's not necessarily because I'm in the NAfME position that I'm in. It's because he believes that music education is important for children. And so I think that's the message that I would want to give as you look through the various resources that NAfME has on our website, or talking with Jazz Monet in different ways, is that it's about building those relationships with all the different stakeholders, parents, teachers, community members, administrators, and so on. So I have a few other things to talk about, but I'm going to kick it back to Mackie, and I'll come back to you and talk a little bit about guidance coming up here for the school year.
Thank you, Scott. You're always so resourceful. And I encourage everyone to take the opportunity to look at many of those things that Scott has mentioned, especially when it comes to local advocacy. Because many states, I'm sure yours as well, is driven by local control. And the principal, the superintendent, or the parish, I don't know what y'all call your parish leader, but that person that is leading the education within your parish, that's a person that you would have to work with, and making sure that they are aware of everything that they need to know in order to make a decision. Sometimes those in the decision making positions, they may not necessarily have all of the information. So that's why public testimony is so critical. And every time the door is open for you to give public testimony, always look for those opportunities and sign up for them to bring your voice to the table. Because if we say nothing, they know nothing about it. They don't know the impact that it may have on children, that it may have on teaching, that it may have on the emotional and social learning of the student. It is very, very important, and it can change the way that the decision makers think about things, and they can change their mind. So every time you have an opportunity to get in front of someone that has the power to make a change, that has the power to sign the bill, change the policy, vote for or against something, that is the person that you want to ensure that they know that you're there, you're in the room, and your voice is lifted. As Scott talked about it, it is all about relationships. That is a relationship that you really want to gravitate to. You want to build up that relationship. And as an LMEA, you want to build up your presence throughout the state in all of those spaces in which people are making decisions about education. If you can have a lobbyist, that's a great thing. If you can't have a lobbyist, how do you, what strategies will you use as a state to ensure that strategically throughout the year, every time there's a bill that comes up, that you are aware of that bill? Sometimes bills come up and they've been voted on and we know nothing about it. We're in the classroom and the principal or someone says, you know, as of today, da, 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 da. And you go, what? You know, it's after the fact because we didn't know anything about it. So it is very beneficial to have someone that has their ear to the ground, that is looking at what's coming up. What are people talking about? What are legislators talking about? And how do you talk to your legislators so that you can impact them? All of those things are critically important. That's where the rubber meets the road, you know, because the state can say one thing, but if the local district says something else, in many ways, the local district will trump what the state is saying. So consider those things. Secondly, when Scott so eloquently laid out the advocacy and how that is built out, I want to go back to the word all, because we use that word a great deal. And I have been critical of using the word without having substance behind it. It's very important to understand that folks judge us by what we say and what we do. You know, by what we say and what we do. If we say we're going to do something and we're about something and we have nothing to prove it, no evidence, then that makes us not have, folks lose, you know, respect of us, and we don't have as much weight when it comes to advocating for students. We are the National Association for Music Education. We have always said that we are for every student. We have always said that we are for all students. And every year and every 4 years, we move closer and closer. You know, the 2020 vision, they talked about all students, wanting music for all students. They laid out some things strategically about which decisions we needed to consider and which direction we needed to go in. And as we were looking at that 2020 vision on last year, we went back and revisited and reflected on the things that was said then, and June Hinckley and James Madison, and what they were talking about then. And we looked and we saw, oh, there's so many things that we're still talking about that are still on the table. And what do we want to do? Why are these things still on the table? What can we do differently now? Because 20 years from now, we don't want to be in the same place. We want to have moved the dial significantly. So because of that, thinking about our words and our deeds, or our words and our doing, to be more aligned, the National Assembly and the National Association for Music Education, we're looking at those words for all students. If we mean for all students, what do we do to ensure that we are advocating for all students? Sometimes that means you have to say, hey, get out the way. Hey, move over. Hey, make room for me. Sometimes we have to say those things. Sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror, look at our programs in the mirror, look at our policies, and with a fine-tooth comb, and find out, that may exclude somebody. Who does this benefit, and who does this leave out? What are the price points for this? Who does this benefit, and who does this leave out? Who can go to this camp? Who does this benefit, and who does this leave out? How many students can you have in your program? Who does this benefit, and who does this leave out? And consistently having those coupled questions. Who does this benefit, and who does this leave out? That is the greatest pathway to advocating for all students. For all students. Who does this benefit, and who does this leave out? When we identify who it leaves out, what changes will we need to make? What expansions do we need to do? How do we need to rethink some of the things that we're doing in order to ensure that all students have access and are a part of it? Who does this benefit? Who are we leaving out? I'm going to give it back to Scott.
Thanks, Mackie. And that's just so true. I mean, I think those are great questions to ask ourselves at all times, and also to ask those stakeholders, those administrators, those people in the power to make those decisions. You know, I've often thought about Vision 2020, and here we are, 21 years later, and obviously the pandemic has changed our boundaries, has changed everything that we know, as you talked about at the beginning. And we can't keep doing things the way we've always done them, especially when it comes to advocacy. I think about a lot of the advocacy campaigns, not necessarily just NAfME, but anybody that has done advocacy. In so many ways, the folks that get the attention of these advocacy are the programs that are already established. And how far have we moved that needle, to your point, that the advocacy is sort of catering to a certain crowd, and who is being left out to answer that question. And I look at it kind of like throwing snowballs at an iceberg. We're launching these snowballs trying to say, well, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this. And the iceberg is so big. And so I think the same way that you eat an elephant is the same way you move an iceberg, right? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
And I think that's really one of the keys to moving forward in the advocacy work, is that each one of us has a circle of influence. Each one of us has our own social capital. We talk about that.
Yeah.
And how we can influence people and how we can influence decision makers. And so I think each one of us has individual power that collectively, through LMEA, through NAfME, through the Southern Division, right? And through all of our different channels and networks, we can make a difference, and we can really move that iceberg, and we can climb the mountain. And, what a great vision it will be at the top. I see we're getting a little long on time here. And I just wanted to mention a couple of other things that NAfME is doing that will be coming out imminently, very, very, very soon. One of the things that everyone will see is the phase 3 guidance that NAfME has worked collectively with NFHS. And that will be coming out perhaps even within a week. I know that they're right on the final draft editing. And I wanted just to share a couple of things. I'm not really at liberty to say a whole lot, but I just wanted to let folks know what to look for. There is an advocacy component in there. There's a lot of language about how to talk with your administrators about navigating through the aerosol study language, the social distancing, the masking. And it really comes down to your local conditions and what's happening in your area. But that guidance is coming along with the language to help you speak with your administrators. I know we're talking about advocacy in the big picture and advancing music education, but also in the specifics of how can we get back to the classroom. And really that's the goal of this phase 3 guidance, is walking back into the classroom. I should mention there is some great pieces for general music, as well as for ensemble music and so on. So we're excited to see that general music has been included in this phase 3 guidance. And there will also be some various resources and videos that will go along with recruiting and trying to rebuild or build back programs. So that is just one piece. I think that I should mention that is just one piece of the bigger picture of the back to school resources that NAfME is going to be putting forward. The staff has put together a great membership recruitment package so that folks are able to access NAfME and access the resources that LMEA and NAfME offer together. We'll also be talking about Tri-M and the many benefits of Tri-M. And I know earlier today, Dr. Tim spoke to you all, and Dr. Tim is one of our key players in the Tri-M program for NAfME. And so look for some resources about either starting a chapter or renewing a chapter for Tri-M. Amplify, which is our communication hub on the website, just got an update. So we're pretty excited to be able to connect people from all over the country. It's a great resource for you to post a question, get feedback from folks all over the country through Amplify. And of course, I think Mackie mentioned earlier about our webinar series and our new professional development committee, the PDC, has put together that runs our NAfME Academy. And so there's a lot of great resources that you can access there for coming back to school, whether that be hopefully fully in person or some sort of hybrid situation or whatever. But we do have a lot of back to school resources coming in the next weeks as most of us are heading back into the classroom. So I just wanted to share all of that and certainly wish everybody well as you are, for health and safety and emotional health as well as we are heading back into the classrooms. So Mackie, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Scott. We are very hopeful. Scott and I are very hopeful that you will have a great year this year. We are here to support you. If you have questions, if there is anything going on in which we can help with, please feel free to reach out to the national office, and they will field those questions to us as appropriate. We know that the work that you do is tremendously important. It is important to every student that you touch, every student, and I mean touch as in voice touch, I better clarify, every student that you make a difference for in their life, every student that hears your voice, every student that you say, that's a great job, every student that you say, try that again, every student that you call their name and say, I see you, I hear you. You make a difference every single day. And for those students that you may not call their name, you still made a difference. You are critically important in each of your students' life, in every single one of their lives. And what you do and what you say and how you open the door and close the door, how you make room, how you accept, how you receive makes a difference. What you think about their parents, what you think about the community in which you teach, what do you think about the school and your colleagues? It all makes a difference. Because when you walk into that classroom, you walk into that classroom in your full humanity. And you're going to engage your students in your full humanity. Remember that teaching is a human experience. It is from thought to thought, emotion to emotion. Children can feel how you think about them without you saying a word. So I encourage you. I feel that your year is going to be a phenomenal year, no matter what situation you're teaching in, whether it's hybrid, whether it's face-to-face, or whether it's fully virtual. It does not matter, because you are going to do the very best every single day for every single one of your students. I thank you, I applaud you, and I appreciate you. I'm going to give it back over to Scotty. Brett?
I think we have a question here, Mackie. And
We do?
Yeah, I think there's one in the chat here that it says, what do you see as our biggest door of opportunity in music education as we move into the fall? I like that question. It's a great question.
I love that question. And we have 2 minutes. Oh my gosh. Talk fast. Greatest opportunity. That's a really great question. In my mind, and I'm biased, so I'll say that. In my mind, I think our greatest opportunity is to actually be okay with changing things. I think being okay with changing things, because, change in many instances is not allowed because there's a status quo. We're not living and existing in a status quo. It's okay for you to do things differently because the situation is different and people are more accepting of new ways of doing things. So if you go into your classroom, or if you go to your school district or to your principal and you say, I'm considering this, and this for these reasons, and we're in a new space, so we don't have those restrictions that we had before. We can try something new. That is a great opportunity, because before you were in this little box, we've always, you can't, these are the parameters. And did you get permission to do that? You didn't get permission. I didn't sign off on it. So you can't do it. And they're not, those people that are making decisions, they're not at that place where they'll say, okay, I'll consider that. But they're more at that place of, I'll consider that. Let's try that. So I think our greatest opportunity now is to go ahead and try something different, try something new.
And I'll add to that, I think everything you said is right on target there. And I'll add to that, it's the power of our students. Listen to them, hear their voice, lift up their voice. I think that's a tremendous opportunity for us, is to, just to be with the students and enjoy, if we are face to face and we can be with them. And even if it's over a computer, to get to know them, get to know their story, get to know how we can engage in music. And I think that has been an opportunity for me personally that I have seen change in my teaching through this pandemic, is just an appreciation for being able to be together and make music when it's possible and safe, and to listen to them and let them lead the way. I think that's a quote, but the children are our future.
I think that's a quote too.
Yeah.
It's a song.
It is.
Well, thank you so much, Louisiana, for allowing us to come to you and bring this final session to you today. We hope that it has been beneficial and inspirational to you to move forward and building beyond boundaries.
Yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spradley and Scott. My goodness, what a way to close out this Ready, Set, Go conference. You guys have hopefully today been inspired. You have been motivated. You have been educated. And what a wonderful, to all the LMEA team members that helped put this together. Thank you to all our presenters who are so gracious to give of their time. Thank you to all those attendees who are watching live, who are going to watch later on replays. We hope that this brings you joy. We put some tools in your toolbox so you can use not only for the beginning of the year, but to sustain you throughout the year. And I know that the things that Scott and Mackie just talked about will hopefully all the resources that are available to you, whether it be things that you can find online through the NAfME website, or calling one of your friends about advice in your classroom situation. All of these tools will help you progress and sustain yourself through the new year. Thank you guys so much. Mr. Walker, any last parting words?
Just thank you, everyone, for providing this for all of the LMEA members, and Mackie and Scott, thanks for being here. Best wishes for a great year, everyone.
Ready, set,
go!
Go.